Well, thanks for the intro. Everybody give it up for Hattie.
Thanks, guys.
She's been here all day. You'll see her some more after this. We're not closing down the house. I swear I spoke to at least a few hundred of you about Eric and this talk. For those who are in the back, this is the time that we'll talk to Eric Yuan, CEO and founder of Zoom Video Communications. It's a full proper name. Exciting. So I'll just tell you a quick story about him. We had a little bit of a prep call, and there's a neat feature to Zoom. And so every 5 minutes in our call, which of course we did through Zoom, the scene behind Eric would change, and it'd be like, Eric, what's going on? So he'd move from like San Francisco Bridge, which I was like, yeah, that's a little strange, but it must be just your static background. Oh, and here's another example of that. I don't know if you can see it. I know I can. But what I'm looking at, since you can't see it, is what looks like a popular scene here in Copenhagen. One of the cool features that could be a little bit frivolous, but actually is interesting as well as the background of what you can do. It actually also speaks to Zoom's ability to sort of be very flexible, which I think we'll unpack a bit in this talk with Eric. And I know we need just 1 or 2 more minutes for him to pop on. So I know it's been, oh, there's Eric. Hello, Eric. Can you see me?
How are you?
Wonderful, wonderful. I was just, we were just talking about you. All of us were. And I'm not sure what you can see right now. Why don't you actually first tell me what you can see? Let's start there. I'm going to sit down. What do you see?
I can see the whole crowd. Thank you.
Oh, perfect. Wonderful, wonderful. So I know there's a few seats in the front. I know it's packed in the back, so just sort of come on in. Some of you who are standing, I know some of you, it's been a long day, so come on to the front. There's a few remaining seats in the front where you can grab a seat and hear this talk. And one thing I want to do really quick, Eric, is thank the TechBBQ team. Big round of applause for the awesome content that's been here from everyone. You can join us in that. And on to Eric. I want to get some foundational stuff out of the way. First, Eric, where are you? Because it looks like you're awfully proximate to us right now in Copenhagen.
I'm sitting at home. Actually, if I do not use virtual background, I will show you my messy the office here. So.
Well, you can choose whether you want to. Well. Thanks for the chair. You know, we don't judge, but either way, it doesn't actually look that messy, Eric. So it's always relative. One thing that you could do, feel free to if you want, is switch the image. I might even ask you to later in the talk, just to vary it up a bit, especially as we work thematically through some of this story, which is pretty fascinating. But for the uninitiated, I just want to make sure everyone's with us and on the same page. Eric Yuan is the founder and CEO of Zoom Video Communications. There's all sorts of news you can share, but recently the company had its IPO. Company's doing well, and just for right on the horizon, there's an earnings call coming up. Is that correct, Eric? That people can listen to?
No, actually, we had our earnings call 2 weeks ago.
Okay, wonderful. So if you want to listen to the earnings call, you can easily Google it or search for it from Zoom to get the most recent updates from Eric. But to unpack the company a bit more, this is a great way to market it. Eric, give us a little bit more color on how you see and explain what your company actually does.
Yeah, thank you. Zoom is a video-first, cloud-based video conferencing service provider. And our vision is to build a frictionless video communication service to bring happiness to the customers. And I started a company in 2011. So prior to that, I was at Cisco. I built a WebEx before.
Yeah, certainly, and a lot of people know WebEx. They've used WebEx as well. Somewhat of a close competitor. It's interesting that you built that up. One thing I want to do, because a lot of people do know that, and that gave us some foundation, is actually take you way back to your first business, which was in metal, if I recall. Could you explain some of your earlier adventures in entrepreneurship for us?
I'm not sure that's a venture, but when I was in the elementary school, and I at that time I was born in China, and before the Chinese Spring Festival, I'd like to kind of get some money to buy something, and I collected those used copper lamps and then sell to the local recycling center. And every year I did that. I did enjoy that. So I make a little bit of money.
So this is like you were hustling out there, and it was a scrap metal that you were collecting, right? And you'd resell it in for recycling. But at some point you collected too much, right? And you had to store it. Is that right?
I collect too much, because there's a plastic, materials, right? So I had to burn that, and otherwise the recycling center, they are not going to to get that for me, right? So I must need to get rid of those plastic materials. So when I burn that, caused a big trouble.
So you needed to burn the plastic off of, or the sort of remnants off of the metal to distill it right down to just copper, for example, and recycle it. But there was an incident, if you could unpack that for us. What happened when you had amassed a lot of this metal mixed in with other material, Eric?
Yeah, when I burn that, every time there's a painful, the experience. My neighbors, they sort of the chicken, the barn, caused a big trouble. The chicken barn, kind of got to the fire. So
you almost set your neighbor's barn on fire.
That's right.
So that would be one reason to leave a country. Somewhat famous to your story. You tried 9 times to leave China to come to the U.S. In the 90s. It begs the question: why did you want to leave so badly in the mid-90s?
I was not thinking about leaving at all, because I know the internet in China will be very, very big. I know that for sure. However, 1995 is too early, and I do not know when the internet, the wave, internet will be very popular in China. I just wanted to go to Silicon Valley to take a look, and then we'll go back to start, an internet business in China. Unfortunately, I just cannot get a visa. And finally, for me to get a visa, I had to get the H1 working visa. So, and otherwise, I just cannot pay a short-term visit. So, because I got the H1 working visa, I had to work there, for a while. But after that, I have a family and have kids, it's really hard to go back to start my own internet business.
Yeah, certainly, and it begs the question, that was roughly 1995, but would you do the same thing today?
Really depends. If you want to start a consumer internet business, I think a huge opportunity, in China, huge. You look at a great company, Alibaba, Tencent, and a lot of great companies. If you want to start an internet, B2B company, I think Silicon Valley and has much more opportunities than any other places.
So certainly, and when you were coming over to the States, we all know that you wanted to get into technology. Your background, education-wise, lent it to that. But how did you end up specifically at a little company called WebEx that would be later part of Cisco?
Yeah, I happen to know one of the co-founders at WebEx, and when I landed in San Francisco airport, I know actually I cannot do anything else but go back to write code. So I wrote the code for several years. That's why the code I wrote in 1998 is still running there in the WebEx product.
Makes sense. And so you had a pretty storied career there, and what would turn into part of Cisco, but there's a very famous scene where investor Bill Tai, and for those who don't know Bill, Bill's a pretty well-known kite surfer, and sort of on the ground level at a number of early investments in companies. One of them is Zoom. Another one is Canva, that's popular. Tapcoin, Hooch would be a few others, and fueled perhaps a lot of the investments ideas at Virgin, a good friend of Sir Richard Branson. But you know him well, Eric, as well, and you had a famous conversation in which you turned to him and said, at some point, someone's going to move video to the cloud and eat our lunch for breakfast. We were curious, though, what his reply back to you was.
Yeah, so that's even before I left Cisco, and I talked with quite a few friends, right, to raise the funding. And Bill is the first one I talked to because, he's my great friend. And he asked about, hey, why you wanted to start another, video conferencing service, given that the market was so crowded. I told him none of those solutions can truly deliver happiness to customers. I know video is a new voice. Video is the future of communications. Someday, some company will build a new solution. I think given that I'm in this market for a long time, I will feel very bad if somebody else, build a better solution. I think I can. And I explained to Bill. And Bill, he's the first investor who made the commitment to invest in Zoom.
There's quite some history there. On the investment note, though, you said earlier that it was a crowded market that you waded into, but peculiar and somewhat unique to Zoom. It wasn't until much later that investors were fully on board. What we know from some of your other interviews is that there was actually a lot of internal debate into a very late stage as to Zoom would ever make it at all. Can you explain that for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I started, I think I can tell you, none of those VCs wanted to invest. Everybody I talked to, they all told me that the market was too crowded. There's no way for anyone to pull it off. Especially you have big competitors like Microsoft Skype or Google Hangout or even WebEx, right? And no matter how I explain it to all those VC friends, and they did not want to invest. But I know actually to pursue your entrepreneur dream, you got to believe yourself. You have a dream, pursue that, right? And no matter how others give you a different opinion, they told you no, you got to pursue your own dream. That's why I talked with all other angel investor friends and raised the $3 million seed funding from Zoom. And that's how we started. But if I listen to other VC friends, I even cannot start the company.
Yeah, sometimes you have to march to the beat of your own drum. It's like you said, but around the same time at the foundation of Zoom, you already said that there were other competing services available. It was a crowded market, and you in fact used one of those services to talk to your wife. Can you explain her role in founding Zoom?
And her role she's very supportive. Right, to build a company, that's a long journey, right? You need to make sure your family, is behind you, right? To give you full support, right? That's very important. I do not think she has engineer background. She does not write any code or do anything for my business, but she's very supportive of my new journey.
Right, as we understand it, going back a few years, you were using one of these other tools to talk with her, right? At one point, and they were insufficient. What were some of the particular characteristics that were lacking that you made sure would be part of Zoom?
No, that's not the story. The story is when I was in college in 1987, so more than 30 years ago. And at that time, my wife, she's my wife. Back then, my girlfriend, she's at a different college, back then in China, and, I was in a different city. To see her, I needed to take a train, the night train, and there's no direct train, more than 10 hours, and only see her twice a year. Back then, my daydream was that, hey, someday if I can build a service, just one click, I can see her and talk with her, that'd be great. It's more like a daydream when I was, in the college. But later on, after we built a Zoom, after I saw the first demo, I can connect the dots. I realized, wow, I thought about that kind of a service when I was in college.
Certainly a powerful use case, Eric, for telecommunications technology. In fact, this is another good example of that. you're here but not, and certainly that background lends itself to it too. One of the things that we noted really early on and want to bring back in was the IPO. We also know that another one of your investors around that time explained to you it's an awesome milestone, but it's much like graduating from high school. Eric, you'll celebrate for one day, and then there's more to do. How do you see yourself as it relates to his quote? What did it mean to you?
Yeah, the quote from my friend, he's Okta, co-founder and COO Frederick is a great guy. I really like his quote. Right, to reach IPO milestone is just similar to high school graduation. Right, you just celebrate it. That's it. After that, you got to go back to work, because IPO itself will not help you anything. Right, will not give you a lot of customers. Will not help you recruit a lot of employees. Just a small milestone. Because after that, you will become a freshman student in the public company campus. Right. For us, we celebrated one day in New York. And then we fly back, to San Francisco to work. And because our goal is to build the best service to serve our customers well. And to be a public company, just a milestone in the long journey, right? Really cannot, celebrate that too much. We got to go back to, execution.
Well, one of the benefits of being a college student, Eric, is, you can be a semester abroad. Copenhagen is a great place to take a college semester abroad. It looks like you're doing that, enjoying it. Feel free to switch up the background if you like, thematically, because this by analogy begs the next question, which is, what does it's beautiful view, and maybe this answers my next question, but what does that next graduation look like? What do those next milestones look like for you after an IPO of a multi-billion-dollar company?
I think the next milestone our goal is, there are over 1 billion knowledge workers worldwide. Our goal is to connect all of them via Zoom platform. The goal is to make sure every year we have more users, to standardize on Zoom platform to help them to improve their productivity. And at the same time, we are going to introduce more and more new services to serve our customers. Like we introduced the cloud-based PBX service early this year. So essentially, we wanted to offer a suite of unified communication service and to build the best service and to bring happiness to our customers.
And certainly, what I want to do to give this some more architecture, I want to touch base on some of the news that came out recently from China and your response to that with Zoom.cn, and then I am Eric. I'm going to go to the audience. So I know we both love participation. We will break out into Q&A. I know there's a walking mic around out there, so you can ask Eric a question directly. So if that sounds good to you, Eric, we'll get there. Recently, though, China banned Zoom as far as it was reported in sort of mainstream media. Were you offended?
No, actually, we are working on that. Essentially, that's our fault. It's my fault because based on the local law, there's a feature, whoever joined the meeting, we need to validate their identity, right? And we did not follow that. We did not implement that feature. I think this is our fault. We need to make sure, quickly fix that, to edit that feature, and then, we'll be back. So, and yeah, that's our mistake. So.
Oh, interesting. Okay, and that just to unpack that a bit more, that sits at a different URL as I understand it, and that's at zoom.cn, or perhaps explain the mechanics for us.
Yeah, that's not the problem. The problem is, that's based on local law, that's a feature you have to. We are the only vendor who did not implement that feature, so we got to fix that. That's it. Yeah.
Certainly, fixes it sounds like you've resolved it. Not too much trauma there. We'll go to a Q&A, Eric, and if you could just raise your hand. I know, like I said, we have a walking mic. This is your chance to ask Eric S2N questions directly. I know we have a question right in the front row, if we could pull up, and one in the back, but we'll start right here in front. If we could pull a mic up. We had a walking mic. But If you'd like to ask it, and I'll repeat it really quickly. We'll just keep it really short, and Eric can hear me. And Eric, the question, if you can't hear it, what is the future of screen sharing? Eric, could you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. What's the future of a screen sharing?
Yes,
right?
I was repeating the question from the guests in the audience. Yeah,
screen sharing is a very important feature, for Zoom, like a video and voice. And I think today, you look at a Zoom screen share, we can share the multimedia content. We allow multiple people share the screen. I think in the future, we wanted to make sure when you share the screen and video and the screen sharing, it will be together. So more like, say, today I'm using the virtual image. In the future, is a shared screen like a PowerPoint can be this virtual background. So we are working on that feature. So make sure the screen sharing and the video will be seamlessly tied together. So that's something we're working on.
Certainly a few other features in progress. And for our mic handler, Fabio, thanks for handling that. I know we had a hand raise in the back. There was at least one other question that I saw earlier. Just if you could just raise your hand if you have a question for Eric and wanted to follow up. I can't see in the back, so Fabio, let me know if you see someone there. And on the other side, speechless, Eric, they're speechless. What they're actually doing is admiring your background. While I have you on that note, what are we looking at now? Is this the retirement phase after your semester in Copenhagen?
This is the Hawaii.
You're living the good. Oh. And for the uninitiated, what are we looking at now? This looks like San Francisco Bay proper. So questions. We have another one on a more serious note. Let's bring that mic down there. Speak loudly and you can hear you.
Hey, Eric. How is it visible to the customers that Zoom delivers happiness?
So happiness is our company, the culture. And for me as a CEO, my number one job is to make sure our employee happy. And together, we want to build a service to make sure our customer happy in terms of functionality or service and the price, or anytime we have issues, we quickly resolve that, right? So we do everything we can to look at it from a customer perspective. We measure the NPS score. If a customer, they are happy, I think we will be okay. That's why, everything we are doing here is to focus on bringing happiness, to the customer.
Happiness being the ultimate arbiter. Eric, we definitely have time, I think, for one more question. Oh, now all their hands are going up. Gentleman in the middle.
Hey, so in your first 10 million of revenue, when you first started the company, what metric did you get your engineering teams to focus on? I'm sure you had revenue for the exec team and sales team, but for the engineering team, what number or metric did you get to motivate them and get them to push forward for?
That's a great question. So for SaaS business, to get the 10 million ARR, that's the most difficult milestone. I think on day one, we measure the NPS score, meaning how customer, they feel like Zoom service, how do they like the Zoom service. That NPS score is the number one important thing, even today. And we always share that with our engineers. Make sure the service that they build, the customer really likes that.
Awesome, great question there. And do we have time for more? Right? Oh, we heard a jingle. We have time for one more, Fabio. Wonderful. So I know I saw a hand in the back. I see one here. Last chance, gentleman in the front.
Hey, hello. My question is, you have so many competitors that are quite strong, such as Skype and Google Hangout and so forth. How is Zoom better than your competitors?
That's a great question. So we really don't focus on competitors. If we focus on competitors too much, I even do not dare to start a company. We really focus on the customer. Because I talked with every customer before I left Cisco, I know all those customers, they were not happy about their existing services that they were using back then. So every day we make sure we communicate with the customer, we build the trust, We offer the best service to customers. As long as customers like our service, we really don't care about the competitors too much. Otherwise, we will follow the competitors' move, and then you really cannot leapfrog, right? I think spend all the time on customer side rather than on competitor side. That's the lesson we learned.
And thanks for that, Eric. We are out of time, Eric, and it's a beautiful day here in Copenhagen. Wonderful that you could join us. You would know that's a beautiful day because we saw you here just perhaps 10 minutes ago. And good morning, we should say, too, Eric. Everyone join me. Big round of applause for Eric S. Yuan. We know he's a really busy man. Zoom
Thank
Video
you for having me.
Communications.
Appreciate it.
Until next time, my name is Jordan French, Executive Editor at Grit Daily News. Do follow us at Grit Daily. Until next time, and enjoy the rest of TechBBQ.